All right, good morning. Always up for a challenge. I only have maybe 5 minutes till I get to work, so let's try to see what we can fit in. 5-10 minutes, something like that. Let's try to see what we can fit in. One of our friends asked, why did God allow a victory to the Hasmoneans, to the Hashmonaim? Because if you know the history of the Hasmonean dynasty later in history, it was a horrific, horrible dynasty further down the line. What started as this great victory of Hanukkah wound up being turning into one of the most horrific genocidal regimes in Jewish history, and here it was heretical ex-Jews, I would say, attacking authentic rabbinical Jews and killing off the rabbis. And so you had Alexander Jannaeus, Yanai HaMelech, Yimach Shemai, who wanted to kill all the rabbis, and he wasn't the only one. Hordes HaMelech, King Herod, Hordes HaRasha. You know, all of these wicked kings. Of course, Herod came later and wasn't part of the Hasmonean dynasty, but much how World War I set the ground for World War II, the Hasmoneans, laid the groundwork for for the Romans coming in, and all that came in the destruction of the temple. And so while this one part of this one part of our history, the victory of the Hasmoneans, is celebrated in Hanukkah, it was really setting the roots for horrors, for a Holocaust that took place by the hand of former Jewish heretics trying to destroy Judaism by killing our rabbis. And it's interesting because I saw someone put on Twitter before this friend of ours asked this question. He said those anti-Israel Jews must really be uncomfortable with Hanukkah, because he put out the map of what the Hasmonean dynasties did, expanding the Commonwealth of Israel, expanding the territory of the Jewish kingdom at that time. And here were the settler expansionist policies and so forth, settling the Holy Land, expanding and so I answered, and probably the one who expanded the territory the most was Yanai HaMelech, was Jannaeus, who was the most wicked. And I said, I answered there on. I didn't want to maybe push the Zionist button, but Jannaeus, Yanai HaMelech, there's a great role model, a genocidal maniac, a great role model for the Zionists, or for anybody. What kind of role model is that? Yanai HaMelech. Even his own Shimon ben Shatach was his own brother-in-law. He had big great rabbis, and they had to run away. That's where even the story of Yeshu that we have in the Talmud was when they were coming back, when Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachia was coming back from this, which shows that this Yeshu is not the same as as the one that the Christians revere, if the one the Christians revere even was a historical figure, but this historical figure, Yeshu, who had some similarities, lived at least 100 years earlier. But what are we dealing with here? What is this all about? What is this story? And the answer that I have is, this is why the rabbis had to emphasize the Hanukkah story that we know of the candles and not the military victory, because the military victory was actually, although the Hashmonaim at that time, the original Maccabees, were holy men who and they had miraculous odds of how they conquered the Hellenists. Again, it wasn't they were defeating the Greeks, they were defeating Jews who were Hellenized. It was a fight between the pious Jew and the anti-religious Jew. Not only non-religious, but harshly anti-religious Jews. And that's really what Hanukkah was, It was a civil war. If you treat Jewishness as an ethnicity, if you treat it as a religion, it was a war between the religious Jews and the anti-religious ex-Jews. That's how I would put it. And so that's why the rabbis really emphasized the miracle of the candles of the menorah, and de-emphasized the military victory, because the military victory really led to horrors, to genocide, to things that we're not really happy about. And again, I've seen recently people, they're doubting whether this was a historical truth or not, and I believe with my whole heart that the story of the menorah was a historical truth. But even if it's not, as I said yesterday, myth is in some ways a greater source of truth than we have as recorded history. Recorded history isn't that valuable either. It's also mythological in a sense. But like we said yesterday, Rabbi Victor Miller would write his history books for the sake of teaching ideology, not for the sake of teaching history. And that's what the Torah is all about. It's about teaching us how to live our lives. And the message of Hanukkah, which you bring out, whether in the Hasidic Sfarim or the Sifrei Musar and so forth, that affects us today, is far more important than what historically is recorded. The power of the Hanukkah Lecht, of the Pach Shemem, of the oil, of the candles. That's what's really important, because that's what affects our lives here in America today. That's what can inspire us more than some stories of some military victory that really have nothing to do with us, very little to do with us. That's what I'm going to share, and that's why I mentioned how the Chavos Yair said in the Mekor Chaim that the simcha was just to find the oil. Forget about the military victory. Just finding the oil, lighting the candles, that's the simcha of Hanukkah. Should be zeichet to have Freilich in Hanukkah.